Moving right along, we are now going to go through the process of making a box plot. So a box plot is a visual representation of a data set using the quartiles and any outliers if there are any. So it's basically taking our 5-number summary and making a pretty picture out of it. So the steps to drawing a box plot are as follows. First, determine the lower and upper fences. That way you can identify any outliers that you may have. Draw a number line longer than the range of the data. So if your data spans from 10 to 20, you want to make sure that your number line is labeled from at least 10 to 20. You don't want it to be any shorter, and you don't want to completely leave out the number line. Then above the number line, you're going to insert, that's a typo, vertical lines at Q1, the median, and Q3, and then enclose those vertical lines in a box. This third step is optional. You can temporarily label your upper and lower fences with little brackets. And then any data values that are smaller than your lower fence or greater than your upper fence, those are our outliers. And you can mark those with an asterisk or with a small dot, just like this. Or sometimes it'll be like an open circle dot. Just something to identify that these are outliers, so they're still marked on the box plot, but they are going to be labeled differently. So stars and dots are the most common methods of marking outliers. And then we're going to draw what are called whiskers, and these are going to be lines from Q1 to the minimum, or if the minimum is an outlier, then it's going to be the next smallest data value, and then Q3 to the maximum or the next largest data value if the maximum is an outlier. So we are going to draw a box plot, and this data set, I actually gave us some context. So this data set represents the number of televisions sold by an employee at an electronics store each month for 1 calendar year. So we have our data set, and because it is a representation of the 5-number summary, the first thing we really need to do is we need to find the 5-number summary, which means we need to put this data in order. So I am working on getting the data put in order. I am in fact going to use technology to help me with that, which we have a video on how you can use Excel to help you sort your data. So 13, 14, 16, 17, 17, 18, 19, 19, 23, 24, 29, and 39. All right, and then for the 5-number summary, we need to identify the minimum, Q1, Q2, or the median, Q3, and the maximum. So the easy ones are the minimum, which is 13, and the maximum, which is 39. And then Q2, I can go ahead and do next. Do this really quickly by hand. We should all be absolute pros at this by now. I end up with these two numbers in the middle. 18 plus 19 divided by 2 is 18.5. So Q2 is 18.5. Q1 is the median, oopsies, the median of the bottom half. And remember that 18 gets included in the bottom half. Okay, and then 16 plus 17 divided by 2 is 16.5. And finally, the median of the top half, and the 19 gets included in the top half, and then this one is 23 plus 24 divided by 2, which is 23.5. All right, so there's our 5-number summary. And then we want to calculate the lower and upper fences as well. So the lower fence, actually before we can do the lower fence, we have to do the IQR. So the IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So Q3 is 23.5 minus Q1, 16.5. So 23.5 minus 16.5 gives us an IQR of 7. The lower fence is Q1 minus 1.5 times that IQR that we just found. Q1 is 16.5 minus 1.5 times 7. Remember our order of operations, we have to do the multiplication first. So 16.5 minus 1.5 times 7 is 10.5. 16.5 minus 10.5 gives us a lower fence of 6. And finally, the upper fence is Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Q3 is 23.5 plus 1.5 times 7. 1.5 times 7 is still 10.5. So 23.5 plus 10.5 is 34. So if I just take a look at my data real quick, it looks like I will have one outlier of 39. Since I have my data in order, I can see that I have one number bigger than 34 and no numbers smaller than 6. So that'll help me when I go to draw my box plot. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So I've done everything I need to before I can start the box plot, which is finding the 5-number summary. And I've also done step 1. So everything that I did here in red was part of step 1. Now I'm going to move on to the second step, and that starts by drawing a number line. And I want my number line to be straight. And then we want it to be marked for the range of the data. So our data starts at 13 and goes up to 39. So I'm going to start at 10. And I want to go up to at least 40. Now I know my lower fence is down here at 6, but I don't have anything down where my lower fence is. My smallest data value is 13. That's my minimum data value. So even though my lower fence is 6, I don't really need to go that low on my number line. I need to be more concerned with where my data is and not where my fences are. So here is my number line. So 10, and then I'll do a line here for 20, and then trying to make this evenly spaced. 30, and then 40, and then I'm going to do marks in the middle for each of the 5s. And that looks, except for the last one, those look pretty good. Let's just fix that last one. And again, this is much easier to do if you're working on graph paper or dot paper, just like all the other graphs we've done. Now I'm just going to move this over a little bit so I have a little more room to work. There we go. All right, now continuing in step 2, I'm going to insert vertical lines for Q1, the median, and Q3. And those are going to go above my number line. So Q1 is 16.5. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball that about here. Q2, or the median, is 18.5. So that's going to go about there. And then Q3 is 23.5. So maybe about there. And my lines are not at all the same length or the same height. There we go. And now I enclose them in a box. And now we have the box part of the box plot. And that is everything for part 2. So what I've done so far is step 1 was all the calculations. Step 2 is what I've drawn so far. So now step 3, we can temporarily label where our upper or lower fences are. My lower fence is down here, okay? He doesn't really matter. He's not on the chart at all. But my upper fence is up here at 34. And he does kind of matter. He's on the chart. And we already looked at our data and said, ooh, you know what? We might have an outlier. And that is important. So any of our data values that are outliers are going to get marked with an asterisk or a dot or a circle or anything like that. So my outlier is 39, and I'm going to mark him with a star. So now the last thing to do is to put the whiskers on this box plot. Now, the nice thing about having these brackets is they can help me when I'm doing my whiskers. When I draw the whiskers, I'm going to think of my box plot like a cat. And this is why it's helpful that these are called whiskers. When I'm drawing these whiskers on my cat, if the whisker goes through the fence, then I have a problem. My cat cannot fit through this hole. That's what the whiskers on a cat do. Okay? So if I'm drawing the whiskers on my box plot and I'm trying to go to the maximum, because that's what I should be doing here. I should be taking this line and I should be going to the maximum. But going to the maximum data value means that I would draw through this fence. Well, then that number should be marked as an outlier. So because my maximum is an outlier, I'm not going to draw my whisker to the outlier. I'm going to go back to the data set and I'm going to say, okay, let's pretend for just a second that this data value did not exist. What would the maximum be if that data value was not there? If 39 was not there, then the maximum would have been 29. All right, can I draw this line to 29 without running into the fence? And you know what? I sure can. And now we are all good. Our whiskers are not hitting the fence. Our cat can fit through the hole in the wall or the fence or whatever it is, at least on that side. Now we need to check the other side. So on the other side, coming off of Q3, we want to draw a line to our minimum, which is 13. So our minimum is 13. Can we do that? We sure can. That looks a little bit more like 14, I think. Let me make this just a little bit longer. Okay, there we go. This is why this is so much nicer to do on graph paper. All right, and then now at this point, what I would do is erase these bars. And there we have it, the beautiful, beautiful box plot that I've drawn. Couple of other optional things that can be done is you can annotate it. So that's where you go through and you put minimum, and you could put what the data value is here. Okay, sometimes they'll put just the data values, because you should really know what these are. This guy, because he's not the maximum and it's not one of the numbers of the 5-number summary, doesn't get a label. Just kind of hangs out. The only numbers that we want to actually label are the numbers that are part of that 5-number summary. So that's annotating. If you ever need to annotate a box plot. Okay, I don't have a title on this. I should. So my title would go down here. Television sold. Looks great. All right, and then the only other thing I'm going to do is I will put those temporary brackets back in just so you can see them one more time where they went. And again, this one down here on the lower end wasn't really that important for this particular graph because he wasn't even within the data set. But there you go. That is how we draw box plots.